بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. From Abadu, my brothers and sisters, we are looking at the story of Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel. This story, for the sake of understanding and teaching and for ease of explaining, it is so rich in content and in lessons that usually, and that's what I have done also, usually it is broken up into two parts, which is Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and Musa alayhi salam and Bani Israel. The purpose of this, as I explained to you, is because we want to make sure that we don't miss out on any of the lessons. The life of Musa alayhi salam is kind of divided into these two parts. His time growing up in the palace of Fir'aun, and then his interactions, his struggle against Fir'aun in trying to get his people released from slavery, and then the time that Musa alayhi salam spent in the wilderness, wandering in the wilderness because of the kinds of decisions that his people took. The story, as I said, is extremely rich in content and in lessons. Nobody can hope to, at least I can't hope to do justice to it or to extract all the lessons that are possible to be extracted from it. I do my best, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me and to help me to extract as much of learning as I can from this, primarily for my own benefit, and of course I hope that this will also benefit you. We talked about we are coming to the end of the story of Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun. We talked about where Fir'aun decided to chase the people of Musa alayhi salam into the sea, where the sea had been parted for the tribes of Bani Israel. As I mentioned before in the last lesson, and I am mentioning it again here, it's amazing how when people insist on committing sin, when they insist on being disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned this: ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عليم. Where Allah said that locks are placed on their hearts so that they don't understand, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places curtains are placed on their sight and their hearing, so that they do not see and they do not hear, and for them is a grievous punishment. Now this is should be a great warning for us all, not to play games with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this deen for our benefit. Allah did not send this deen without a reason, or just because he randomly sent it. He sent it for our benefit. He sent it so that if we live by this religion, it's a religion of compassion, religion of kindness, religion of forgiveness, a religion which is based on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduced himself as Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. If we live by this religion, then inshallah we will have a life which is full of tranquility and goodness and beauty, and therefore it is something for our benefit. But if people refuse to accept that, if they refuse to accept this great gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if they insist on sin, if they insist on disobedience, if they insist on doing what Allah has prohibited, and Allah prohibited for our benefit. For example, if I tell you that Allah has prohibited us from harming ourselves, and that is why things like alcohol, all kinds of intoxicants, tobacco products, cigarettes, and all kinds of tobacco products, all kinds of things which are harmful, These are prohibited for us. But if somebody insists on using those things, then who are you going to harm? My point is, I mean, if you want to smoke and get lung cancer, then you are going to get lung cancer, not somebody else. And if you say, no, it's my right, I would like to smoke, I have my freedom. My freedom is that I can smoke. Of course you can. Your freedom also is to get lung cancer. Now, doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. But unfortunately, when we insist on disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then good sense and nonsense don't seem to have any meaning. And that's the reason why it's very important for us to ensure that we don't risk the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when people do that, then a time comes when the doors of hidayat, the doors of guidance are shut. Because obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, Allah is not requesting us, Allah is not pleading with us to obey Him. It doesn't matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether we obey Him or not. When we obey Him, we are doing ourselves a favor. We are not doing a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So after some time, after, as a matter of fact, quite a long time, when people refuse to accept and they continue to insist on disobedience, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, so if that is what you want, then that is what you will get. And so therefore the doors of hidayah are shut. Manifestation of that is, for example, whoever in your life used to warn you, used to try to, advise you to do good, that person will be removed from your life by whichever means. Another thing is that sometimes you find that for people, initially the heart itself, their own heart, pricks. If they do something wrong, the heart, there's a doubt in the heart, the heart pricks. And that is why people go, even those who go fatwa shopping, of course fatwa shopping is a very bad thing to do, one must never do that. But another aspect of it is, why does anyone do that? Because their heart is bothering them. They are not happy with their lives, they are not happy with what they are doing to themselves. So they do something, they know it is wrong. I mean, you don't have to tell them, they know what they are doing is wrong. So they want to, somehow find some justification for it. So they go and look for a fatwa. They want to try and find some convenient person who will permit them to do what they would like to do. But the thing to remember is that why are they doing that? Because it is bothering them. So therefore, I always remind myself and also tell you that if your heart is unhappy with something, if you find that your heart is pricking you, respect that. Don't disregard that, because it is a sign that alhamdulillah your heart is still alive, that your heart is still good, and it hasn't got completely corrupted. Because there are people who are not bothered. I mean, they are perfectly happy and they sleep very peacefully, doing some very negative and toxic things. Now, obviously, you don't want to be in that situation, and the way to avoid that trap is to make sure that you listen to your heart. Don't become deaf to your heart, because that's a very dangerous thing. If you become deaf to your heart, then you find that you will come and go, nothing happens until one day the door shuts, and then of course there is no return from that situation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from that. Now, in this case of Firaun, as I was saying, it's sometimes you wonder, how is it that an intelligent person, and it was not him alone, it was him and all his advisors and all his ministers and whoever, these were intelligent people. You don't get to build an empire of the kind that the Egyptian empire was by being stupid, by being dumb, right? By being ignorant. No, you do that because you are top of the world at that time. You are the most intelligent people, the most learned people, the people with the greatest knowledge. You don't get to build things like the pyramids because you are dumb, right? They did amazing things. But the point is that somewhere, because of shirk, because of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hearts are sealed and the eyes and ears become blind and deaf, and then they cannot see even the most obvious thing which is in front of them. And what always amazes me, I always tell people, put yourself in that situation, become the fly on the wall, fly on the wall when you are looking at the situations. Imagine if you are a drone which is flying over that part of the Red Sea where Musa alayhi salam and his people are crossing. What will you see? You will see the sea has been parted, 12 different paths through the sea. Sea water is standing up vertical, in like a wall, demarcating each path, and we don't know how tall that wall was. The seawater wall is 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall, God knows 100 feet tall, and this dry land, and these people are walking through that. And on the other bank behind them, you see the army of Pharaoh. The Pharaonic army, they were, of course, they had infantry, they had cavalry, but they were most famous for their chariots. So they had these war chariots. So you can imagine Pharaoh must have obviously been in a war chariot. So you have the charioteers, chariot drivers, charioteers. You have the soldiers in the chariots, and you have the cavalry, you have the infantry. Because the Pharaoh came with his entire everything, right? He wanted to completely finish the Bani Israel once and for all, destroy them. And there were a lot of people, as I mentioned in last class. There were supposed to be 600,000 of them. So that's men, 600,000 fighters, plus women, plus children, and so on. So it was close to 1 million people. So Pharaoh came fully prepared to completely destroy them. Now there you see them, and then these people are entering into the water, right? They're entering into the water behind the Bani Israel. So they're entering into those dry land pathways, and of course, as soon as the Bani Israel crossed on the other side, with the hukum of Allah, with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sea, then the walls collapsed. The ocean just closed up on top of these people. Now imagine thousands and millions of tons of water hits you, you're dead anyway, right? You're smashed and drowned. Not a hope of surviving. Now think about this. I always think, I say, if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, now here are these people. You were chasing them, whatnot, and you denied Musa alayhi salam, you called him Majnoon and so on. You said he's crazy. But now you are actually seeing something happening which is so completely out of the ordinary, so completely amazing, so completely miraculous, that normal common sense will tell you that if you are in that place of Pharaoh, of course you should not be, I'm saying whoever is in that place, they would say, if they had any intelligence at all, if the intelligence of those people was working, if their brains were functioning, they would say, look, hold on a second. I mean, whatever we said till now, whether we believe Musa alayhi salam or not, we don't want to chase behind these people. Right? We don't want to go behind these people, because this is completely out of the ordinary. I mean, when was the last time you saw sea water standing up like a wall? So this is not safe. Let us not go into this, because if this is what the Rabb of Musa is doing alayhi salam, then we don't want to test and push any further. So let's stay here. Bani Israel have gone. Assalamu alaikum. Let them go. Anyone with any intelligence would have said this. But what happened to Pharaoh? This is what shows you that if with arrogance the brain goes dead, intelligence disappears, evaporates, and a person is so drunk in his own arrogance, in his own pride, that he is incapable of seeing something as open and plain as that in front of him. So what do? They drive through, they go through, and then of course they are dead. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this where He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وجاوزنا ببني إسرائيل البحر فأتبعهم فرعون وجنوده بغيا وعدوا حتى إذا أدركه الغرق قال آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل وأنا من المسلمين الآن وقد عصيت قبل وكنت من المفسدين فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ عَنْ آيَاتِنَا لَغَافِلُونَ. Allah says in Surah Yunus, and we took the children of Israel across the sea, and Fir'aun with his hosts followed them in oppression and enmity, till when drowning overtook him, he said, I believe that La ilaha illahu, there is no one has the right to be worshipped but He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in whom the Bani Israel believe, and I am one of the Muslims, and I submit to the will of Allah. Now when is he saying that? He's saying that when he is drowning, when the water hit him and he is drowning. Then Allah says, now you believe, while you refused to believe before, and you were one of the mufsidun, one of the evildoers. So this day we shall deliver your dead body out of the sea, that you may be a sign to those who come after you. And verily, many among mankind are heedless of our ayat, of our evidence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, what do we learn from this? We learn that there is a time for turning around, and if we lose that time, then there is no hope after that. So I suggest you, there is the mummy of Fir'aun, of Ramesses IV, is there in the museum in Egypt. But my submission to you is, don't waste your time asking if this is the same Fir'aun as the Fir'aun of Musa. Instead of that, ask, what is the lesson for me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said He will deliver the body up. Now think about that here again. When thousands of tons of water hits you, you disintegrate, right? There won't be any body, because the Pharaoh didn't fall into the water. The water fell on top of Pharaoh. So he would have, if Allah wanted, if in the normal course of things, he would just have been smashed and disintegrated. But Allah wanted to save his body. Allah took his life. He drowned him, but He saved his body as a sign for the people who come after him. So therefore, obviously, he was taken out, and then he was, mummified and so on. And that's the only body that we have. I mean, even though God knows how many thousand people drowned with him, that's the only one we have. So the wages of sin are disgrace in this life and fire in the hereafter. Very truly, it's something that we need to think about. Jibreel alayhi salam said to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you should have seen me as I stuffed mud in the mouth of Pharaoh, so that the mercy of Allah would not bless him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved his body as a sign for us, so that we can correct our lives, not so that we can marvel in the magnificence of the pharaonic civilization. Today, if you go to Egypt, people are very proudly, they show, oh, this is pharaonic civilization, and so on and so on. I remember many years ago, I went to Egypt and I took a tour. I wanted to go to Luxor, where the so I wanted to go to Luxor, as I said, but I didn't have the time. So there is somebody in Cairo who has created a little mini Luxor in the Nile in Cairo. And you take a boat, and the boat has there's a recording which plays as the boat goes. And at each place where it stops, the recording tells you which temple it is, and so on and so forth. And in some places you can get off and take a look at the temples. And there are sometimes there's a guide there who talks to you. So I was sitting in this boat and taking this tour. And one place we got off, and this guide is an Egyptian guy, Muslim obviously, who tells me this is the temple to Ra, who is the god of air. So I said, what? And that's when I said what, he suddenly looked at me and he came down to earth. And he said, no, Sheikh, I don't mean that. This is what the Egyptians used to worship. So I said, please say it like that. Don't say this is the God of air. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabbul Alameen. Now I am no stranger to temples. I come from the land of the greatest number of temples in the world. But this is the pharaonic civilization, so-called, that people today, I mean, Ajib, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a major source of income for the Egyptians today, where a lot of their income comes from tourists coming to see this ancient civilization. I wonder how many of them reflect on what happened to that. How come people who built these magnificent temples and so on and so forth, how did they come to an end? I mean, how did they cease? What happened to them? Now, very, very important for us to keep our focus on what is important. And what's important is not the buildings and so on. What's important is the lessons that we learn from these stories. Now, very few people of Pharaoh, Egyptians, believed in Musa alayhi salam. One was a man from the courtiers of Pharaoh, and the other one was Asiya radiallahu anha, who was the wife of Pharaoh. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ إِذْ قَالَتْ رَبِّ ابْنِي لِي عِندَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent forth an example of for those who believe. The wife of Pharaoh, when she said, my Rabb, build for me a house with you. Rabbi ibni li indaka baytan. Send me, O Allah, build for me a house with you in Jannah. Fil Jannah, and save me from Pharaoh and his work, and save me from the people who are the Zalimun, the disbelievers, and the people who are the oppressors. Now, think about this. This pious lady, the foster mother of Musa alayhi salam, as she was, because she's the one who picked up Musa alayhi salam from the river, and she's the one who persuaded Pharaoh to raise him as a prince in the palace. She had everything. She was the wife of Pharaoh. Imagine what more could she have asked for? She was the wife of the greatest king of the time. Wealth, uncounted wealth, and palaces and servants and power and authority and whatnot. But so she could. She had everything that anybody could seek in the dunya. Absolutely everything. Yet she lived there like an alien. She lived in this dunya as if she had nothing to do with it. She was a pious lady, and she lived in the dunya like she had nothing to do with it. And so she made this dua where she asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, build me a house in Jannah. Pharaoh, later on, he got angry with her and he ordered her to be executed. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the way they did that, these are very cruel and merciless people. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that he will give them adhab, he will give them adhab. So he will punish them in a particularly severe way. So they put her on the ground and they crushed her with a huge rock. They put a big weight on her. That was how they killed her. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that she made this dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took her life without any pain. And before she died, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed her the house that He had built for her. Imagine, this is the reward for those who obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, even though, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there were only 4 women who were complete. And these were Maryam, Asiya, Khadija and Fatima radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. 2 were mothers of Anbiya, 1 was the wife of a Nabi, and 1 was his daughter. These are the 4 women who have been exalted, and Rasulullah ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exalted these women and gave them very special status. Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Isa alayhi salam, Asiya radiallahu anha, who was the foster mother of Musa alayhi salam, Khadija radiallahu anha, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Fatima Zahra radiallahu anha, who was the daughter of Khadija radiallahu anha and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to live our lives in a way which is pleasing to Him. And we ask Allah to help us and to bless us and to be pleased with us and never to be displeased with us. But this is really the only thing which matters, the only thing which counts, which is whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us or not. Nothing else counts, right? Everything else is fluff. If Allah is pleased with us, then believe me that our life is complete. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased with us, then no matter what we achieve, no matter what we do or don't do, we will always have trouble. Now, brothers and sisters, the purpose of these stories of the Quran al-Kareem, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for enabling us to read them. We thank Allah for giving these stories to us. The purpose of this is to learn and to apply them in our lives and to monitor our lives. As I have said before, the Quran is a map. The map of the Quran is in the form of its injunctions, its stories, its examples, and it's the job of the person reading the map to compare his life with those stories, with those things, so that he can then look at himself and say, well, this is what this map is showing. Am I on track? Have I gone astray somewhere? Is everything okay in my life? What do I need to do? What turn do I need to take? All of these cases. So now that we have listened to this story, those of you who have been following this series of lectures, now that we have listened to the story of Musa and alayhi salam and Firaun, let us think of what are the lessons that we learn from this story. The first and foremost lesson that we learn from this story is tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Complete and total faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The mother of Firaun was a helpless lady. She had she was one of the enslaved people. The Bani Israel were enslaved at the time. So she had no power, she had no money, she was a poor woman, and she could not protect her son. So yet, obviously like any mother, she didn't want to lose the son. So what does she do? She obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the beauty. Think about that. What's the lesson? The lesson is that you have tawakkul. And this tawakkul consists of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though the order that is being given to you, you don't understand. You do not understand this order. It doesn't make sense to you. All the science is against this order. All the knowledge that you have goes contrary to this order. Yet, you ignore all of that and you obey the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because you know Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Because you know Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Many times people say, for example, take the issue of interest-based banking. You tell people, do not take interest. Allah has prohibited it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared war on the one who takes interest on his own behalf and on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is this how you want to meet Allah on the day of judgment, as his enemy? People say, oh no, but brother, in today's world, it doesn't make sense, you know what? After all, how else can I grow my business and blah blah blah. Tell me, how much sense did it make to Musa alayhi salam's mother? That Allah is telling her, when you fear for the life of your son, meaning when you fear that the news of his birth has been conveyed to whoever of Firaun's officers was in charge of slaughtering the babies of Bani Israel, and you fear that his life is going to go, you fear that the soldiers will come to kill him, what must you do? Put him in a basket and throw the basket into the Nile. Tell me, in which way does this make sense? Allah is not even saying boat. In which way does this make sense? When I fear that there is danger in one place, I must put myself into even more danger. Does it make sense? What did Musa alayhi salam's mother do? She did exactly that. She followed orders. She followed instructions. Allah said, do it, so I'm doing it. Does it make sense? I don't care. It may make sense, it may not make sense, it may whatever it may do or may not do. I will do what my Rabb told me to do. So the first lesson we learn is this, tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what's tawakkul? Tawakkul is to trust completely and totally. The sign of trust is to take risk. If you trust in the parachute, you jump from the plane. Yes? You trust in the medicine, you swallow it. You trust the surgeon who is going to operate on you, you willingly, voluntarily, after having signed away your life, you go and lie down on the operating table and you don't worry that the man is taking a knife and is slashing you open. No problem. So, do you trust Allah? Do I trust Allah? Allah is not asking you to slash yourself open. Allah is only advising you and telling you and ordering you to do that which is pleasing and beneficial for you. First lesson we learn is tawakkul, trust on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we learn the lesson that if you trust, you take risk. If you trust, you do what Allah tells you to do, whether or not it makes sense to you, because you believe that Allah knows more than you do. Right? Second lesson you learn from the life of Musa alayhi salam is that to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to make effort. As much effort as you can make. Musa alayhi salam did that. His whole life is a life of effort. He walked from Egypt to Madian, he spent 10 years there, grazing sheep and learning, then he came back, making effort in the path of Allah, making effort in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you make this effort no matter whether anyone else is pleased or not pleased. Third lesson we learn is again a lesson of tawakkul when Musa alayhi salam is given nubuwwat. What is that lesson? First and foremost, adab. Take off your shoes, fakhlan alayk. Adab, you want to learn deen? We are talking here about nubuwwat. You want to learn deen? Adab. Learn to show respect. Learn to respect in the heart and learn to show respect. Adab. After that, Innani ana Allahu la ilaha illa ana fa'abudni wa aqimis salata li dhikri. Recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la ilaha illa ant. There is no one worthy of worship except you, Ya Rabb. No shirk. Tawheed. Wa aqimis salata li dhikri. Establish the salah for my remembrance, for my zikr. So, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I accept that there is no one worthy of worship except Allah, and then I pray to Allah. So, tawakkul, tawheed, salah. Right? And then we come back again to, and in between all that, struggle. Then we come back to the struggle, which is Musa alayhi salam's struggle with Firaun. And there again, what is the lesson we learn? We learn the lesson of courage. Courage to speak the truth to power. Courage to speak the truth to a totalitarian ruler. To a ruler who apparently has the power of life and death over you. And you are able to speak that truth without fear because you know that that ruler does not have that power of life and death over you. قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. This is the shan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should say, who is the Malik al-Mulk? Not Firaun. Who is the owner of everything? Not Firaun. Not whichever ruler. Not whichever government. But Allah. Allahumma Malik al-Mulk. My Rabb is the Malik al-Mulk. And this mulk, this hukumah, this government, this authority, this power, this wealth, tu'ti man tasha wa tanzi man tasha. He gives to who he wants and he takes from who he wants. They cannot hold it if they have it, and they cannot hold on to it if they have it, and they cannot get it if they don't have it, unless Allah wants. And if Allah wants, He will take it away from the most powerful and He will give it to the most powerless, which is what we see in the story of Musa alayhi salam, who was more powerful than the Firaun in his court, surrounded by his courtiers, his army, his wealth, his authority, his power, his glory, his majesty, everything. And who was more powerless than Musa alayhi salam, standing there alone with a staff in his hand, his cloak around his shoulders, dusty, straight out of the desert. Who was more powerless than Musa alayhi salam? He had nothing, he had no wealth, he had no money, he had no power, no authority. On the face of it, if Firaun wanted, Firaun could have ordered him to be chopped into mincemeat. But Firaun cannot do anything unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders him. This is the thing, this is the ability to see behind what is visible. The ability to see behind the obvious. What is the obvious? The obvious is the power and the glory and the majesty of the human being. That leader, that king that you are seeing. And what's behind that? Behind that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qudrat. When you can see the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you see that this creature is not even like a fly. He is not even like a fly. I don't have to worry about him. I don't have to bother with him. He is nobody. He is nothing. As long as I am true to my Rabb, this fellow here who thinks he is God, who calls himself God, who makes people worship him and prostrate before him and makes sujood to him, he cannot even breathe without the permission of my Rabb Jalla Jalla. That's the lesson. Right? And then, the final lesson, if so, is what? Is that despite all of this, there is a time frame, there is a time period. You have to go through certain stages. You have to do certain things. You will still see the ups and downs of life. And this is where the Bani Israel kept continuously losing hope. The Jahilun among them, they continuously lost faith in Musa alayhi salam. Despite seeing all the miracles of Musa alayhi salam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him, showed the people through him. Again and again the Bani Israel expressed lack of faith in Musa alayhi salam. Because not able to see behind that. And they didn't realize that even though you have the Nabi with you, you have to go through certain motions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us that the importance of following the process, the importance of the asbab. We do not have faith in the asbab. We have faith in the musabbibul asbab. But we also understand that the Musabbibul Asbab is the one, the creator of the Asbab is the one who made the Asbab. The creator of the means is the one who made the means, and he told us, take help from the means. Use the means. Don't have faith in the means, but use the means. The famous quote of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, Tawakkul is like the bird which leaves its nest in the morning with an empty belly and comes back in the night with a full belly. But he did not say Tawakkul is like the bird who sits in the nest and waits for the food to come. No. Making effort is critical. So despite the tawakkul, who had more tawakkul than Musa alayhi salam? Despite that, make the effort. Go through the process. Follow the process. So worship Allah, make your houses into worship places of worship for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then leave in the night, go past, hit the water, then the water will pass, then you will part, and then you cross over, and then you stand there and you watch the fun while Firaun and your enemies are being destroyed. Right? So these are the lessons from this part of the story. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand them and to learn from these and to apply them in our lives. The whole point of this is applying the lessons in our lives. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.